Former President Donald Trump is at this federal courthouse in Washington, D.C., and technically he is in custody of law enforcement. Mr. Trump will soon be arraigned on 4 federal charges stemming from the January 6, 2021 attack and the multiple efforts in 2020 and 2021 to deny Joe Biden's 2020 election victory and deprive millions of Americans of their rights as voters. Trump landed in the D.C. area a short while ago at Reagan National Airport in Virginia. He's returning to the epicenter of power, as well as, in some ways, the scene of the crime. Joining us now to discuss, John Bolton, the former national security advisor for President Trump. Ambassador Bolton, thanks for joining us. So, Mr. Trump is about to be arraigned for his efforts to overturn the 2020 election. Do you think that his behavior was criminal?
Yes, I think this indictment lays out a pretty strong case. Particularly the most important part of it, I think, is the description of the effort to turn Mike Pence into an instrument of reversing the result in the Electoral College. I think that's the strongest part of it. I think it was right to bring the document case. I think it's important to have both of these cases brought to trial before the election, as far in advance of the election as possible. But I want to underline what we're doing. I think it's the right thing to do, but it is a modified form of Russian roulette. If Trump is convicted in one or both of the federal cases, I think that will turn things upside down. I think he could be denied the Republican nomination. He'd certainly lose the election. But if he is acquitted, or a hung jury results, which I think would be understood by most people as being the equivalent of acquittal, I think he would get the Republican nomination, and he could quite possibly win the election on the back of that.
But just to be clear, you're not arguing that, therefore, this shouldn't be happening. You're just saying we just need to, as Americans, be aware of potential political fallout.
No, I think, as I said, it is essential to have brought these cases, and it's just as essential, in fact, more essential, to have them tried before the election, to defeat the delay strategy that Trump's putting out. The public interest here is in having, in each case, 12 jurors give us a decision so the people have adequate information on which to judge Trump. But the risk is real, and I hear the exuberance. I've heard it the last 24 hours, and everybody, look, the impeachment efforts against Trump failed twice to convict him. And what was the consequence of the failure? Emboldening and empowering Trump. Acquittals here would be even more devastating.
One important question in the case going forward might be whether prosecutors will be able to prove that Donald Trump acted corruptly. In other words, whether or not he knew deep down the fact that he lost the election. You worked closely with him. Do you think Donald Trump knew that he lost the election?
There's no doubt in my mind that he knew he lost the election, but that's not really an issue that anybody needs to worry about, because the question is, can his lawyers don't have to prove anything. They simply have to induce reasonable doubt in the minds of one or more jurors to get a hung jury. And if people think that he's being railroaded, if they don't believe the prosecution case, or they believe whatever case Trump puts on, and this results in a hung jury in either of the 2 federal cases, I think we're in for real trouble. I just think people need to understand that. Don't get too exuberant because of the indictment. As people got exuberant over the impeachment, tell me what the result of the trial is, and then I'll tell you how to feel.
There are a lot of Republicans in Congress railing about 2 standards of justice, they say. When you look at the conduct that Donald Trump has been accused of, is there any part of you that thinks that it's true the Justice Department is being weaponized against Donald Trump for political reasons?
I've been an opponent of the special counsel concept as long as I can remember, and I'm still against it. But in this case, nobody can say the Department of Justice is weaponized. I think the special counsel has proceeded independently. I happen to think that's not a good thing constitutionally, but it's simply false to say the Department of Justice has been weaponized. It is possible, and I think seriously open to question whether Hunter Biden has been treated in a similar way. But as my mother always used to say, two wrongs don't make a right. You don't make up for Hunter Biden getting a sweet deal, if that's the fact, by letting Donald Trump skate free. You prosecute where the law's been violated.
Yeah, and we should note that, of course, the judge has sent back that plea deal that seems to have exploded for Hunter Biden. Mr. Trump is speaking out already this morning. He wrote, quote, "I'm going to Washington, D.C. To be arrested for having challenged a corrupt, rigged, and stolen election. It is a great honor because I am being arrested for you. Make America great again." What does that mean to you? I'm being arrested for you. Why would anyone think that that is possibly true?
Well, I think he's appealing to the alienation of a lot of Republican voters, a lot of independents, a lot of people who have supported him before. And if he can make them feel that they are the ones that the system, the deep state, is after, it will solidify their support. And for a lot of reasons that people can discuss, that support is real. It's undeniable. What will shake that support is conviction.
Ambassador John Bolton, thank you so much for your time today. Appreciate it. Caitlin Collins?
Hi, Jake. Yeah, sorry, we're out here outside the courthouse. Obviously, Donald Trump has arrived here. We did not actually see him because his motorcade went into the garage. We do know he's got a slew of political advisors with him, but most importantly, he has his attorneys with him. And what's notable about that is one of those attorneys, John Lauro, is just someone who is only recently added, but he is going to be the one who is leading the January 6th case and the defense here. We've seen him already doing so publicly. Now is the first time that he's in a courtroom to do this. Here with me now is CNN's Paula Reed and the former federal prosecutor, David Aaron, who worked at the Justice Department, was a federal prosecutor until not that long ago. You looked through this indictment, and we heard from Bill Barr last night. You just heard from John Bolton, his assessment of the indictment. What do you think of it?
I think it's largely what I expected. It tells a full story. It tells that story in a way that lawyers and regular people will understand. And it focuses on one defendant, even though it alleges a conspiracy is limited to the one defendant. And I think that reflects an effort to get this case moving and tell the whole story without unduly complicating it.
Yeah. And as you're looking at this indictment, looking at this case, and now he is, when they are in there talking about this and what this looks like, the defenses of what they are clearly going to use that are shaping up. Do you think what they are saying publicly, what John Lauro and others are saying, is what they're going to be actually using when they're in a courtroom?
Well, I think it remains to be seen. I think they might be test driving a few of these arguments. Not all of them seem legally meritorious, although they might be publicly appealing. This might end up a defense of just a probable cause, a beyond a reasonable doubt defense, arguing that the prosecutors just didn't carry their burden without offering any particular specific defense.
Which is a high bar, Paula. I mean, as we've been talking about.
It is an incredibly high bar, and I think you make a great point about test driving some of these defenses in the court of public opinion. Let's take this argument about the First Amendment, right? They've been arguing, I think John Lauro told you, he's told other people publicly in the past few days, they're trying to criminalize First Amendment activity, particularly political speech. Well, let's look at that, okay? Political speech is widely recognized as one of your most protected rights. You can speak out against the government, the political process. You can even lie about that. But there is no First Amendment protection for fraud, and that is what is being alleged here. They're alleging that he fraudulently tried to create these documents and submit them to the government, to the archives, and to Congress to steal the most powerful office in the world. There is no First Amendment protection for that. So I think legally, that is probably not going to hold up in a court of law, but it appears to be very appealing, particularly to the president's supporters. So they're going to probably keep testing these ideas, see what sticks.
And the other thing is that they're essentially arguing this when it comes to what this is looking like. What Bill Barr was saying last night is that the idea about the free speech, and Bill Barr was saying, well, yes, speech is involved in any conspiracy charge, and just because it's speech doesn't mean it's protected by the First Amendment, especially when it does relate to what this indictment alleges, which is a conspiracy to subvert the election.
Exactly. They're alleging that he engaged in a conspiracy to defraud the U.S. government, and that is not protected by any constitutional amendment. But when it comes to the court of public opinion, people who may not understand, the history of the Supreme Court protecting political speech but carving out exceptions for fraud, that may seem appealing to them. They may say, hey, well, why can't he just call out alleged fraud? But again, legally speaking, once this is before a jury, you do not have a First Amendment right to lie or to engage in a conspiracy.
Dave, you're a former prosecutor. I mean, Trump is going to be face-to-face in that room. We believe Jack Smith is going to be here. That's the second time that they'll both have been in a courtroom together. But Trump has been attacking him endlessly on social media, calling him deranged, calling him a crackhead, implying that he had something to do with cocaine that was found at the White House. I mean, it's awkward, but also how does it affect the prosecution in the sense that he is attacking the very prosecutor?
Seasoned prosecutors like Jack Smith have been called a lot of names and been in a lot of awkward situations. This particular defendant may be dialing it up a bit, but you don't get to the point where Jack Smith is without having a fairly thick skin. I don't think we'll see a change in his stoicism, and I don't think we'll see any impact on the prosecution itself.